So there's this one time when thieves got into our house at 3 a.m. and we had closed the doors that night before we went to sleep, and everything was just okay, like any other normal day. But what happened is while we were sleeping at 3 a.m., we felt people walking into, into our living room. And it wasn't easy for us because we are a small family made up of like only three people. That is me, my husband, and my child. So these people actually made an entry into our living space. And it was so scary. It was so confusing and very a moment that I wouldn't want to think about anymore. But one thing is that we let them, we chose to be safe rather than to confront them and fight back. So we kept our cool and just kept vigil so that they don't come to other rooms, and kept vigil, put our weapons together, ready that if they come to where we sleep, then we'd be ready to attack back. But thanks to God, because they found most of the valuables in the living area and they were so much in a hurry, they didn't carry much of the things. So why am I telling you this story? Because Genesis 1 and verse 8 reminds us that we were created and given a role, a responsibility, and a mandate to be stewards. Stewards. Still, the same fact is emphasized in 1 Peter verse 4 and 10, which tells that we have been given specific gifts to serve others. You have a skill that you have not for your own empowerment, but for service for others. We are created to be stewards of God's work. So, if I let you know that I'm a project manager, stewarding, like serving other project managers in the kingdom, I believe so much in the prayer, the Lord's Prayer, and particularly on the line that say on earth as it is in heaven. So my mandate through this season is to bring the kingdom projects into the marketplace. And I would like to say that before you get into the marketplace, you have to break an entry in the marketplace. Just like the thieves that broke into our houses, for them to get the valuables in our house, they had to break an entry and get into the house so that they can go on and take the valuables from the room that we are living. So no matter the failure, no matter things that come your way, you need to not only focus on the echoing of the doubts, you need not to focus on the fatigues, the weight of expectations that come with them, but look at every point as an opportunity so that you may anchor into the timeless wisdom, so that you may anchor into the deeper clarity and have a stronger conviction of your renewed purpose. Welcome. So today we're going to talk about breaking in with purpose. And this will be centered upon marketplace entry that is rooted in you having a legacy in whatever you're doing. So still, I would like to remind you to the timeless wisdom of Zechariah 4:10, which says, "Do not despise the day of small beginnings." Now, if you get into the context of Zechariah 4:10, you realize that at this point, the Israelites were tasked with the mandate to rebuild their temple and the city. And the task was so enormous and so insurmountable because there were oppositions all over. There were opposition from the Samaritans. There were opposition from different ranks among themselves, and discouragement was spreading over and over. So I want you to look into something that you did. For example, one time I ventured into farming. Mind you that the last time I got deep into farming was when I was maybe in my childhood years, between the age of 5 and the age of 10. That is when I actually saw my parents engage deeply in agriculture for economic purposes. And then years later, when I am 30 years old, I venture into the very act of agriculture for economic purposes. So it wasn't easy because I am breaking in an entry into the field that wasn't aligned to what I had put, or I had, what in terms of the skill that I had invested, in terms of the things that I have done. What I was doing at this particular point was not in alignment. Okay, so a bit of a background is that I had gone to school to study medical sciences. And then, because of the dynamics of the work environment, my line of work was in the biochemistry and the biomedical field that required me to get into a research organization. But because of the dynamics of the country I come from, the job market for research and development is not that well expansive. So we opted to get into sales and marketing because at the end of the day, you have to get something to keep you on and sustain you in life. But then it came to me that I am more of an entrepreneur and have this divine energy to carry things from scratch to bring them uh, to reality. So I say no. I may not have enough capital. I may not have the enough, you may not have enough capital like I was at the time. You may just have the idea and the purpose to carry through. So that is what you need. So I ventured into this agriculture for economics, and it started on a very low note. In fact, it took me 2 years to actually fully break an entry and now start bringing out something that was of a greater build in this case. So I would like to say to you that every milestone, every pivot that you're taking, no matter the budgets may be tightened, the timelines may be slipping right in your hands, the stakeholder confidence in whatever you're doing may not be strong enough, the vision may feel so big, and the resources may feel so small. But I want to remind you that do not despise the day of your small things. Why am I saying that? Because every milestone, every pivot that you take is an act of stewardship, and it's a part of a greater build. So when you hear those discouraging words, when you hear those doubts from yourself, I want you to pair it with faith and strategy, and you will always find your way forward. So for me, my journey did not begin from build my journey of breaking into um, the marketplace did not begin from with a business plan or a polished pitch, but it actually began with a legacy. I was privileged to have my great grandpapa, who was a close friend of a politician, a very huge politician at that time. And being among the few who were educated in the 1900s, they got the opportunity to be stewards, to actually divide the land for the community, so that now that the colonialists had transitioned to their homes, now it took the people to take up the mandate and distribute the resources to their communities. So my grandfather had the privilege to be the steward of distributing the lands. And gladly, he got a good parcel of land. My grandfather on my father's side got a parcel of over 300 acres. And my grandfather on my mother's side got over 150 acres of land. So we started on a point where we were given time to experiment. We were given the opportunity to try to have the trials and errors. We were able to experiment and work on our vision to carry just in the, like to do every kind of imaginations that could come into place. So for me, that became the land became like a seeds of strategy. It was on that farm where we were surrounded by soils, seasons, and silent lessons that I first encountered the economics of farming, the art of enterprise, and the quiet power of possibility. I didn't recognize it then, but those childhood experiences shaped my mindset in a very profound way. They trained me to spot opportunity in the ordinary, to think creatively in the face of constraints, and to believe deeply in the value of starting early and building with intention. That farm did not just become a place. For me, it became a blueprint. It became a living model of stewardship and, and offered an avenue for sustainable growth. So the question is, how did you gain entry into the marketplace? I want you to get deep into yourself, do an introspection, and ask yourself, in the position that you are, how did you first get entry into the marketplace? So these answers matters. When you're able to answer that, it will be very important because it will shape your market identity. You will not be that brand that copies what is coming on in the going with the season and the flow and the trending things, but you will have authenticity. You will know what is most important to you because your story is your real lived story. And the only person who can tell it best is you. Your brand becomes your identity in a very powerful way and a very powerful asset because no one else can tell it like you. So in the brand that you're building it in a very unique way, just the way you want it. So when you know where you're coming from, you show up differently, you build differently, and you lead differently. So as you reflect on your entry point, I want you to remember the origin of your history because it's a strategy, it's a brand, and it is a purpose.